What's up, YouTube fans? Today we're going to take a look at the FansToys LX Soft FT-10LX, their clear version of Jetfire. So this is an interesting figure here. This was sent to me by G. Tony. I really appreciate him sending me stuff like this. I would never look at it. I would never buy a figure like this. One, it's just very expensive. This is in the order of $500 to $600 depending on where you bought it. And two, I'm not really a big translucent figure fan, although this is really cool. If you don't know, Jetfire is my favorite character, so I do love seeing stuff like this, but just not for my collection. So I really appreciate that. Thanks once again, G. Tony, for sending me something so awesome. So a little background story on this figure. So FansToys didn't announce this. This image of this figure came out, and it was supposedly produced by a company called LX Soft, licensed by FansToys to make it. They basically gave them all the packaging and everything else, and LX Soft was selling it. Later on, rumors came out, and you can see this on TFW or any of those other sites, that really this is made by FansToys. And I kind of believe that because I showed you the packaging image early on, and also take a look at the collector's card here. And it just says FansToys everywhere. Everywhere you look, it says FansToys, FansToys. There is a little LX Soft right here, and it does say LX there. This is the translucent version, so they did change the actual card. But pretty much everywhere you look, it says FansToys. On the instructions, on the box, on the card. The figure itself feels like FansToys. It doesn't seem to be any different. So my belief is this was made and produced by FansToys and then sold as a one-off lot to LX Soft to distribute. Reason being, translucent parts are known to be potentially breakable, and they didn't want to have the reputation of having any broken figures. In addition to that, they probably didn't want to provide parts for this, because just in case it does break and it's fragile, they don't want to have to keep servicing. So you cannot get replacement parts for this figure. We actually had a couple people already try, and they weren't able to get replacement parts. So I am going to be very careful with this figure. Try not to break it because you cannot get replacements. So there's the story. Let's get into this figure. Pretty cool looking. Whether you like translucent or not, you have to admit this just looks really wild and crazy. So you do still have some white parts here. So you can see it's not just fully clear. There are some white parts here in the thighs. Some of the internals have that white, and then anything that was die cast, you can see here and here. Instead of being painted white, now it's just the regular die cast. It really looks kind of cool. I like that look. You can kind of see where all the die cast is. So the feet are still die cast. These landing gear and the crotch piece is die cast. There's die cast on the internals in here, and some of the hardware. And that's basically it for a die cast. Oh, and then these pieces right here. And they still painted that, so that's interesting. I guess you can't make this translucent anyway, so you might as well paint it. Everything else you see is translucent. So you got translucent red, translucent blue here for the cockpit. The head is translucent, but the face is actually, no, that is translucent. This is translucent gray, which is interesting. But the eyes are not translucent. They're metallic blue. But if you prefer, you can replace them with these translucent blue eyes. So we're actually going to do that so we can have the fully translucent look. I'm sure G. Tony wants that look anyway, so we'll do that off camera and be right back. So there he is with the translucent eyes. For once, I actually think the translucent eyes looks good. It looks right on this figure. Because of all the other translucent blue plastic, this just matches a lot better than the metallic. Of course, you can choose, but I just wanted to show that off. All right, let's take a look at the accessory, which is literally the only thing is this gun, other than the eyes that we already put in. It is translucent. It's hard to see through, but it is actually translucent plastic. Just a smoked gray. Of course, you can put that in his hand. Hands are individually articulated. You do have the little white pieces there in the hand. So a lot of the joints, I guess to make it a little bit stronger, make it so it doesn't break, they put some of the joints and some of the moving pieces as this white plastic instead of what you would typically see, which is this translucent plastic on a translucent figure, just so that it doesn't break. And I think that was a good idea. That was good thinking on FansToys to not use translucent for the parts that are going to be moving. But there you go. That looks nice. Here is the back of the figure. We didn't show that yet. Although this is translucent, it looks like it's darker plastic. It's not. It's just that it has the black underneath it. So it makes it look like it's a darker red. But it is exactly the same color. Here are the wings. The wings look pretty cool. We'll see them more in the vehicle mode. You do have translucent blue for here, for the cockpit. Pretty much everything you see here is translucent with the exception of the die-cast buttons here for the legs. But all in all, really nice looking robot mode. And for a quick comparison, there it is next to the FT-10LX, their metallic version, and the MP44 KO. And they both obviously scale well, look good with the MP44. The plastic on this actually feels really good. Feeling both, you can't tell that it's a translucent plastic, but it doesn't feel weak or anything when you hold them kind of side by side, right? This does have a painted surface, so you do feel the paint. But as far as just the general, bulk of it or the general feeling of the plastic, it doesn't feel much different than this. So they did a good job on the plastic quality. Now, when it comes to articulation and transformation, it is exactly the same as the other FansToys. Everything feels identical. There's nothing different. All the ratchets feel the same. They work the same. Nothing feels fragile or anything like that. Really just exactly the same as the original figure. So rather than waste time going through articulation and transformation, we're just going to get this guy transformed into his vehicle mode, and we'll be right back. And there's FT-10LX in the jet mode. This is really something to see. It's just so cool looking in this color. And again, it's not for me. I'm not a translucent collector, but there's just something really neat about this. If you look at the bottom, you can see that the die cast is unpainted. So you just get that old school look. You got all that die cast on there. And it just looks really cool in this translucent version. So pretty much everything you can see is translucent here. I did have a little issue on the way here, and it's definitely going to probably break by the time I get back to the robot mode. But the tab on the inside here that holds this leg in place actually is, it was already kind of stressed. I could tell it was going to break, and then when I put this in, the tab's still there, but probably when we go back to robot mode, I'll report on that when I transform my back, but probably it's going to break off. It's not too bad though. This leg is still holding on with this outer tab, but that inner tab definitely broke. That's probably one of the thinnest tabs on this entire figure. I was worried about it, and that's why I looked at it. I did contact G. Tony to let him know. It doesn't affect things too much, but that's kind of the risk you take with translucent figures, unfortunately. But it still works. Everything works nicely, and you got the translucent wings up here. These still can move up and down. The flaps can still flap. The edge of the wing, instead of being painted orange, is this translucent orange. That's a really nice touch by FansToys to do that. You do have the painted red here. I think that would have looked better if it was also translucent, but I guess they couldn't make that die cast translucent, so they just chose to keep it painted. You do have all that nice detail. This is a smoked gray translucent for the vents. You can still open up the cockpit, although I would be careful with this translucent plastic. Very thin joints there, so it still works and looks good. All in all, relatively good looking and robust. With the exception to those little tabs on the inside, everything feels really good. It does roll really nicely. You can't put the landing gear away. Just can lift up the tabs and put those away, and they'll fold right in, and same on the back. I'm going to leave those out, but you can put those away, and that looks nice. Quick size comparison, there it is next to Smokescreen. Obviously a huge difference here. I mean, it's just a massive figure, but of course Jetfire was really big, so it makes sense, looks good, and I would imagine this would look really good with a bunch of other translucent figures. I just don't have any in my collection, so if you are a translucent collector, this is definitely one piece to pick up. So final thoughts on FT-10LX here. Let's start with the positives. I think it looks really cool in both robot mode and vehicle mode. The die-cast pieces stand out because they're unpainted, and it just looks like old school kind of G1 because you've got that unpainted die-cast. Overall, it's got all the same features, accessories, articulation, everything that you have with the original FT10, so you can count on that. And it just generally looks good and feels good. Negative-wise, it is translucent plastic, so you're going to have issues. This is the tab I was referring to right here that is very thin, and it is actually still attached, but I can see it's stressed and cracking here. So eventually that's going to break off. Now, it doesn't really affect anything, honestly. It still transforms, and it's just a little bit looser in the vehicle mode. I did mention it to G Tony. He didn't seem all that upset or worried about it, so he's a cool dude. I just love working with him. So not a big deal, just something to look out for, especially these two tabs on the bottom here. Just be careful with those. Other than that, I haven't had any issues. Pretty robust overall for a translucent figure. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this review. We have more figures coming soon, so stay tuned and we'll see you next time.